It's been a while since I went out looking for Bigfoot horror movies worth a squatch, but I found an interesting pairing that may not advertise themselves as being Bigfoot movies, but surely seem to be about the hairy champion of hide-and-seek. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. Horror Express was released in 1972. You can find it on Blu-ray from Arrow Films, and it's also streaming on Tubi. It's directed by Eugenio Martín and written by Arnaud and Julian Zimet. While one might not leap to consider this a typical Bigfoot movie, the main monster trapped in the crate in Horror Express truly is certainly hinted at being the legendary abominable snowman. With unconventional concepts, characters, and monsters shuffling between train cars throughout the film, Horror Express proves to be ahead of its time with a sort of throw a bunch of shit against the wall and see what sticks attitude that you didn't see in other films in the Hammer collection. The biggest selling point of this film is its two lead actors, Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. Usually at odds in horror, this time around they have a weird pairing as dueling archaeologists, putting their heads together to uncover a mystery surrounding an archaeological find Lee happens upon during a Himalayan excavation. Lee brings this creature he finds in the ice on the Trans-Siberian Express, and immediately weird things begin happening. Christopher Lee has a big old Vlad Tepes mustache, and Cushing, who outside of the film had recently lost his wife, appears more gaunt than usual in this role. Both Cushing and Lee are almost upstaged by Alberto de Mendoza as a holy man who becomes transfixed by the creature. Silvia Tortosa classes up the film as the Countess, who plays a great damsel, and ends up being the apple of the monster's only eye. VHS I Like You Girl, Hannah Fireman, played Tortosa in an episode of Shudder's Creepshow, which focused on Horror Express, and she's a dead ringer for the gorgeous actress. That episode turned out to be one of the series' best installments, and continuing the Creepshow connection, the Beast in the Box in Horror Express is not unlike the crate segment in the original Creepshow movie. Threatening to steal the show is Telly Savalas, who shows up very late in the film for about 15 minutes, but chews on these minutes like a raw steak as a boisterous Cossack running the train. Elements of Horror Express show up in many a latter monster movie, most notably John Carpenter's The Thing and Predator. Much like John Carpenter's The Thing, Cushing and Lee deduce that the creature travels from one body to the next, mesmerizing their prey with its stare. Being a fan of Bigfoot encounters videos, a common theme among those who say they have seen the creature is that the creature's eyes were mesmerizing, red and almost hypnotic when they catch one's stare. In Horror Express, the creature also mimics the voices of passengers on the train, much like the Predator, and as it turns out, the hairy beast is also a pretty good whistler. There are moments of ludicrousness, though, as the beast frozen in ice for a millennium somehow knows how to pick a padlock with his bent fingernail. The camera really amps up the menace of the creature in close-ups with its glowing red eye and hairy body, but when they pull back, the lumbering beast loses its effectiveness. While most films don't focus on the more mystical side of Bigfoot, this one surely does. On top of the monster itself, director Eugenio Martín adds screeching and wailing music reminiscent of a train's wheels breaking that is as haunting as the subject matter itself. The autopsy scene performed by Lee and Cushing are amazingly gory for its time, showing much more of the red stuff than Hammer or American studios were used to. This most likely is due to the fact that the Italian filmmakers were following the steps of Bava, Argento, and Fulci rather than the more romanticized horror of American and English directors of the time. The wide-eyed and bloody stares of the possessed characters of this film makes it all the more terrifying. I'm going to give Horror Express a mighty 4 feet and 4 toes. It's one of the better horror films that deals with a Bigfoot-like creature without naming it Bigfoot or any of its other colorful nom de plumes. Horror Express is a true original and shouldn't be missed by fans of Bigfoot and the wider horror audience. Like most films of its time, Horror Express ends abruptly, but it's full of shocks, surprises, and innovative ideas and performances. It's a tale of a Bigfoot-like monster running amok on a train. A simple concept, deftly plumbed for all it's worth, in a movie that most definitely will not be forgotten once viewed. Next up, we've got a lesser-known indie film that came out in 2011 called Dead Stop. It's streaming on Tubi. It's directed by Jonas Stolpe and written by Josh Jacobs. Dead Stop is about a group of kids traveling across a desert when their van dies on them. Soon they find themselves trapped, but just when they think matters can't get any worse, a hairy creature that looks to be either a dogman or a Sasquatch is stalking and massacring them as they leave the vehicle. Here's a solid film that never really identifies itself as whether it's a Bigfoot movie or not. Director Jonas Stolpe takes his time at the beginning establishing these characters before shredding them to pieces when they get out of the van. This film makes good use of the Wolfen-style POV shots of the monster bounding after its prey in the arid landscape. The filmmaker has a good eye for locale, really soaking in the desert and highlighting how beautiful and dangerous an environment can be. The desert isn't always seen as the usual locale for a Bigfoot-like monster, but sightings have been found in more arid areas. Most of the shots of the monster are quick, obscured, or in shadow, suggesting terror without really showing much of the creature. Most likely this is because the creature costume didn't really look all that good, but I'd rather have a movie not show the monster and be successful at building tension and scares than a final scene of a guy in a store-bought monkey suit. Some won't like the fact that a clear shot of the creature is never shown, but Dead Stop is full of subtle terrors and an ending I found to be both haunting and satisfying. I'm going to give Dead Stop 2 feet and 4 toes. This is a solid little film that delivers some strong characterization and acting by a cast of unknowns, has a nice sense of suspense, and never exceeds its budget limitations, yet delivers a compelling story. It knows what it is and never tries to be anything more than that, and I respect that. Dead Stop is a testament to those who take the less is more route in filmmaking while managing to deliver a powerful movie about a mysterious monster roaming around in the dark that can pounce at any time. I'm curious about those who watch horror movies and are interested in Bigfoot horror. Have you ever had a Bigfoot encounter experience? I'd love to hear about it down in the comments. I don't want to turn this into another Bigfoot experience channel, but it'd be interesting to hear if any of the people who regularly listen to this show have ever had any encounter with the big hairy guy.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're doomed. Oh, you're doomed. You're